In the early 2000s, Google didn't exist, and nobody knew what the internet was going to become. Phil Fraser just wanted to create a website to promote bingo websites around the world. Over the ensuing years, the internet exploded, and so too did his business. Welcome to Insights into Success. Let's go hear Phil's remarkable story. All right, Phil, well, thank you so much for agreeing to join us on Insights into Success. Really interested to talk to you today because I know you've got an interesting journey about starting up a business and, well, running it for, I think, about 18 years through to ultimately selling it. So really keen to hear that story and see what we can learn from it. But I'm wondering if you could start off by telling us a little bit about your background prior to setting up the business and how you came about to set it up. And then take us through that story, that journey of running that business.
Okay, so first, thanks for having me on. I didn't start my business till I was 32, and even then it was accidental. So if we go all the way back, as many people do, I came out of university with no idea what I wanted to do. My parents suggested I become an accountant because that's a really, really good career to have, and had a friend who ran an accountancy firm and got me in as a trainee accountant, which I really wasn't very good at. And I remember clearly when I quit, the managing partner said to me, "I think you've made the right decision," which was sort of like a double-edged sword, I think. I then went moved down to London and got into advertising sales. So I was selling advertising in magazines, hopped around 2 or 3 jobs doing that. And in between for a year within that, actually ended up being a recruitment consultant because I went back to the recruitment consultant who got me the first 2 jobs and said, "I want another job." And they said, "Hey, why don't you work with us?" So I went, "Oh, all right, that sounds like a good idea." And then moved back into advertising sales and sort of cut a long story short, found my way back home to Leeds, which is obviously in the north of the UK, and sort of swapped horses and joined an advertising agency, which was a fantastic place to work, absolutely brilliant, loved it, culturally a fantastic company, and a lot of the stuff I picked up from their culture I took into my own business. So this is sort of late 90s, so we're talking sort of 97, 98, 99. Around that time, we had clients starting to come to us saying, "I want one of these newfangled websites that I've read about." So we, as an advertising agency, we did print and posters and TV and radio and PR and direct marketing, and then okay, this newfangled internet, this World Wide Web sounds like it might be a goer. And we set up what I assume now you would call a digital division of the company. At the time, it was just a couple of the creative guys who sort of had shown an interest in the internet, the strategic director of the business, and he sort of wheeled me in as the account director, as the bag carrier. And I thought, oh, this is quite good. This internet might have some legs, there might be an opportunity in here somewhere.
Isn't that funny looking back now, reflecting back now on what you must have been thinking at the time and how it's, evolved since then. Isn't it incredible?
Absolutely ridiculous. And I think we had 2 computers in an office of 50 people that were connected to the internet. We had and one of the secretaries printed off emails and distributed them to whoever it was supposed to go to, all that sort of stuff. Yeah. So I'd spent 6 or 7 years at the ad agency, and one of the things that you do in many, and it's the same in many service industries, is you put recommendations in front of clients. And in advertising's you creative, you can either use this creative or that creative or the other creative, and then the client decides where they want to go. Yeah. And I'd got to the point where I thought, well, I want to be on the other side of the fence. I want to be the client. I want to make the decisions, not just be the bag carrier and making suggestions. So, as I say, we just started this digital division, so I had a little bit of experience in digital. So I thought, okay, I want to go client side, and this internet thing sounds like it might be a good thing. But I wasn't sure So I thought, well, if I can find a big company that's doing internet stuff,
Yeah.
so I've got a bit of a security in case it doesn't happen. So I ended up at one of the UK's biggest bookmakers, a company called William Hill, who you may or may not have heard of in New Zealand. They're at the time one of the big two. So it was a safe job. And they brought me on board to launch what at the time was their first ever online casino. So this was a step further for them from sports betting to casino.
Yeah.
So I was sort of head of casino, or head of online casino. And during my first year there, we came across the concept of online bingo. So it's sort of another step in the online gaming world. And I was tasked with doing a presentation to the board as to, what the market looked like, should we get into it, all that sort of stuff, which I did. And they decided it was a bit of a step too far for them. Casino was one step away from sports betting. Bingo, which is sort of female and a different sector, was too far a step for them at the time.
Right.
And we didn't go with it. And I left William Hill at the end of the year and went out into the market as an online gambling consultant. Very much a case of in the kingdom of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. I had a year's experience in a sector that was only just starting, so I was an expert.
Yeah. Love it.
So I was doing a little bit of consultancy, and a friend of my brother's said to me, "Oh, I want to get into online gambling. This is going to be a growth market." So I said to him, "You want to get into online bingo? That's going to be the next big thing." And then about 48 hours later, I sort of sat there and thought, why don't I do that? I'm telling somebody else to do it. Why don't I listen to myself?
Yeah.
So what I did was I dusted off this presentation that I'd done, sort of rehashed it slightly, turned it into an investment pitch, and took it out to the market to get funding for what would have been the UK's first ever pay-to-play online bingo site.
Yeah.
So you guys call it Shark Tank. Over here we call it Dragon's Den. So real life Shark Tank. Not on telly, but going out and actually getting funding. Now, my timing was completely wrong because firstly, it was a legally grey area. So it wasn't legal, but it wasn't illegal. Secondly, around that time was just when the first .com bubble was bursting. And the third thing was, in the UK, we have two big bingo companies. They have, bingo halls all over the UK.
Yeah.
And neither of them were doing it. So I was trying to pitch an idea that wasn't in the UK. The big boys, quite obviously at the time, weren't interested, was legally vague and in the middle of the .com bubble. So unsurprisingly, I got absolutely zero funding whatsoever. Nobody was interested. But, and this is where the business happened.
Yeah.
What I'd done is I built a very, very basic website which listed all the bingo sites that were in the US at the time, just as an information website. But what I'd done is I put on it a very basic pop-up questionnaire to get some demographic information about the audience. So, age, sex, how much they spent, how regularly they played, frequency, recency, all that sort of stuff. So that when I was doing my Shark Tank pitch, I sounded like I knew what I was talking about. And what happened was a number of the sites that were on this website that I'd built contacted me and said, "Hey, can we advertise on your website?" So I said, "Yeah, if you send me some money, I'll put some ads on the website." And that became the business. So it wasn't even a proactive, well, I suppose it was what you would nowadays call a pivot.
Yeah.
I call it just an accident. And also it goes back to what I was saying, my previous career was advertising and selling advertising.
Yeah.
So this sort of
was in your lane.
Yeah, absolutely in my lane. So that's how the business started.
And tell us about what happened with the business and how it grew and what did it end up looking like?
Okay, so as I said, at this time I was sort of going out there as a consultant and I had a few clients, but I was still at the same time looking for a proper job whilst taking this pitch out. So I was sort of, wasn't sure which way I was going to go, and actually ended up, I got myself a proper job, good salary, et cetera, et cetera. It was in a digital advertising agency. But I went to see them on the Friday before the Monday I was due to start and said, I'm sorry, I can't take this job because this thing is starting to take off. I've got to give it a go. And, often, that's a proper sliding doors moment. I could have quite easily taken the job and just parked it and that would have never happened. So huge sliding doors moment. So we started, just myself and my wife, working from home. We had 2 young kids. The market was all in the US, so we were sort of working from in UK time, sort of 12 o'clock lunchtime to 9, 10 o'clock at night. So working from home, we got a few freelancers in, and it just, it picked up. And we were fortunate because it was a growth market. So as the market grew, we became known as one of the major review sites in the market. So we sort of grew as the market grew.
Right. So I just want to get a clear picture here. So your website was basically there, providing, it was like a blogger, that was it, like providing content around reviewing different websites that did that sort of thing, maybe topical issues relating to bingo and all that sort of stuff. Was that kind of what you were doing?
Yeah. So the core of the site was a directory. So I had in my mind that we had to have every single bingo site on the net on our site. So whatever you were looking for, you're going to find it on our site.
Yeah.
And that was the core. So it started as a directory, and then we had a news section, and then we had a special offers section, and then we created a site of the month, and just lots and lots of different ways to be the place to go for anything to do with online bingo. So as every month a new site was launching, so we'd add it to the site, it'd be part of the news. Then we'd obviously have a new client because there's a new person new site launching, and it sort of grew and grew and grew. So we were very much right place at the right time, but there were 3 or 4 other sites similar to us initially that were very, very amateur. So we just, coming from, I wouldn't say a corporate background, but coming from a proper advertising background, I tried to make it a proper official site quite quickly rather than just a blog. So I tried to make it official sounding.
And how did you get your website known? Like, how did you get it out there so that people were aware of it and would start going to the website?
It was, what today you would call search engine optimization, SEO. Yeah. The web was a much, much smaller place. This was pre-Google. Right, we had, I don't know, you look a lot younger than me, but we had things like Alta Vista and Ask Jeeves and places like that, and right. Yahoo. And because we were quite early into the game, and because we were one of the first to take it above just a level of amateurness and quite professional, we grew our traffic, and we had 2 audiences. Obviously, one audience was the people who were playing bingo, because they would come to it. They would be looking for a new website to play at or find out what the news was and all that sort of stuff. But the other audience was our clients. So we had a B2B sell in terms of we're selling advertising to them, and a B2C sell to the customers to want to come to the website and read what we had there. And we what nowadays is like real 101 marketing, but things like we collected email addresses, we had a newsletter, we had reasons for people to come back on a regular basis, and just some of the, like, what nowadays would be, as I say, marketing and SEO 101 was what we were doing. But it was some fairly basic stuff, and we were doing link exchanges and some of the stuff that became not necessarily black hat SEO, but grey SEO, because it was quite a competitive market. Yeah. And we did a little bit of advertising, and because we didn't have any funding, we had to be smart with, we would do exchanges with people. So, we'll email your offer to our database if you email our offer to your database, and just smart smart, simple stuff. And then what we did, we duplicated the website. So we had 2 or 3 smaller versions or slightly different versions of the same website. So similar content, but coming from a different angle. My view at the time was, if we've got 4 or 5 different bingo portals, online bingo portals, if there's 10 sites on a first page of SERPs, if we've got 4 sites, we might get position 1, 2, 5, and 6. So I don't mind where the money comes in; it comes in different places. That's obviously pretty hard to, or virtually impossible to do nowadays. But at the time, that was the way we were thinking.
And so with your different websites, how did they vary? Did you sort of pick a different segment of your target market and just hone in on that on each one, or how did you differentiate them?
We had 2 or 3 that were pretty much a rehash of the same stuff, but just slightly different designs. Maybe took, the main site was, our main website was called Which Bingo.
Yeah.
And that had everything in it. And then we had 2 or 3 others which sort of sliced bits of it. So if you've got, I don't know, 10 components to the main site, we had 6 on one site, 4 on another, 6 on another. And then we also launched a free-to-play bingo game with a third-party software, which again sort of got the same people in, but from a different angle. So we were, it's all still advertising. It was all data collection and remarketing and letters and that sort of stuff. And instead of people coming to the site to read reviews and see advertising, they would come and play free bingo, and then there'd be ads in between games, and there'd be ads around the bingo card and all that sort of stuff. But it was all still the same model, which was selling advertising. So we had to get people to our sites, and then to get them to go away from our sites as well, because that's how we monetized them.
Yeah. And what about your staffing? How did that look? So in the beginning it was you and your wife, and so how did it grow, and what sort of numbers did you end up employing?
So we initially grew with freelancers, and we had a content guy and we had a web dev guy, and then we outsourced, we rebuilt the site, and we had a back end built from a third party. And then after 5 years, our main freelancer said, I'm getting a full-time job, which gave us a real, again, this was like a big stick or twist moment. Yeah. So until then, we built this business, it was sort of doing okay. We thought we were doing quite okay, and when you launch a business, the first thing you need to do is you need to make it work. Then you need to, pay for food to put on your table. Then you might upgrade your car. Then you might be able to go on holiday. It goes through that. So we just sort of worked our way through that, and we thought we were doing okay. And so this guy quit, and we thought, shit, what do we do next? And the local council was doing some funded business consultancy. They were getting sort of consultants in. So we got one of these consultants in, and it was the first time we'd ever sort of shown anybody the business as a proper grown-up business. We were just been doing stuff. And we sort of showed him our book, almost like a bit embarrassed, like, this is what it looks like. What do you think? And he looked at it and he said, go for it. Get yourself an office, get yourself some proper staff, which anybody who's grown a business will know that is at the time the scariest thing you ever do.
Yeah.
Because when it's your own business, if it goes well, great, I'll give myself some money. If it doesn't go well, so what? When you take on staff, you then start thinking things like, shit, I'm responsible for their mortgage and their rent and them putting food on the table for their kids, and it becomes really, really scary.
Yeah.
So we got ourselves a small office, and we recruited a couple of staff, and the business grew. And again, people who've grown businesses will probably recognize this, that every time we took on a new member of staff, the business grew, just from a capacity point of view. And with a website, it's as simple as, if you've got 2 people writing content, you have twice as much content, and therefore you have twice as many pages to put advertising on. And then if you get yourself a salesperson, and I'm not then doing the selling, he does the selling, then I can do strategic stuff and more stuff happens. Then you get 2 web designers, so you can create more pages and redevelop the site and it becomes better. So we sort of grew slowly and slowly, to the point where I think at our biggest, I think we had 14 staff, something like that.
Yeah.
And it, when you first start, you do everything as a business owner. Then you sort of slice bits of you off to give to it, and they become jobs. And then you get to the key point is where you get yourself a number two, because up to that point you're just taking work away from you and giving it to other people. When you get a number two, you're actually duplicating yourself, and that becomes a really big step forward. And what it allows you to do is, and we'll possibly come on to this later, when you're selling the business, that's the point you want to get to, is the business runs without you. Yeah, you should aim to make yourself redundant. And that number two is such an important point that's again another pivot point on the business.
Yeah. So for you, why did you end up selling? Tell us a little bit about how that came about and what made you decide to do it.
Yeah, I'd been of the opinion, probably not proactively, but always subconsciously, I'd always been of the opinion, well, if somebody gives me enough money, I'm quite happy to sell. Yeah. And I know a lot of business owners and founders get really, really attached to their baby. But I'd always been of the opinion, if you give me enough money, I'm quite happy to sell. Yeah. And we'd been through a sales process about 5 or 6 years before we actually sold, and it didn't work out, and we actually had an offer on the table but decided not to sell. But plan B had always been get somebody else in to run it, get a number two, and that triggered where we got to. And over the years, we'd had lots of people over the years sort of knocking on the door saying we'd be interested in buying you. Same discussion, sign an NDA, and let's talk numbers and we'll see what happens. And I had a drawer full of NDAs and no sale. And what happened was our industry had 5 or 6 aggregators buying up lots and lots of smaller businesses like ours. Yeah. So it was quite an active M&A market. And we got approached by one of these aggregators who said, we'll give you, insert big number. Would you be interested in selling? So I said, that's a big enough number. Thank you very much. We went down to London, met them, and actually that big number wasn't exactly the big number. They had a few caveats and a few earn-outs, and it was yes, but, however, all that sort of stuff. Yeah. Which is a bit of a shame, but what I did, and because it was quite a small industry and I knew most of the aggregators in the market, I contacted them all and said, look, we're not for sale, but we're currently talking to somebody, and if you'd be interested in acquiring us, now might be a good time to talk. So sort of dangling, but not selling. And long story short, one of the other aggregators, basically, complicated story, but basically came back to us and said, yeah, we're interested. I agreed the figures and the base and the structure of the sale over the phone with the MD. And it was a PLC, so it was a chief exec, with sort of 2 phone calls and 2 emails. And then it went to the lawyers, which is like, running through mud. Really, really was. And sort of, what did it take? 1, 2, 3, 4, probably 4.5 months after we agreed the numbers, we signed on the dotted line.
So you owned the business from inception to sale for how long?
So that took 18 years.
Right, so it's a long time.
Sorry, I was going to say the thing was, we got to the point where the business was doing very well. It was just churning off money. I had a number two in place, so I was pretty. We'd agree the strategy between the two of us, and then he'd execute it, and I'd manage him, and that was so. So at no point were we desperate to sell. Yeah. And if the sale hadn't gone through, I'd have quite happily carried on. Yeah. But at some point you have to think, is now the right time to take the money off the table? And actually, with hindsight, we seemingly we sold at the peak,
right?
And we got out as the sector got quite complicated. So from my point of view, the timing was right, the price was right, the structure of the deal was right. It just ticked every single box.
Yeah. Well, it's good. It's nice and to look retrospectively and think, well, I did the right thing. So through your whole journey of 18 years, what do you think? What were your biggest challenges that you faced during that time?
What were the biggest challenges? I think one of the biggest challenges was keeping ahead of the game. By the time we sold, it was a very, very competitive market. And one of the things I talk to clients about now, particularly online clients, is, and this is a really, really difficult question, is why should I come to your website rather than somebody else's website?
Yeah.
Which as a business owner, when the website is the end game, really hurts your brain, because you pick any sector and most websites are pretty similar. There's not, you take a huge market like price comparison websites.
Yeah.
What's the difference between, you've obviously, I don't know if you've got different brands over there, but we've got Money Supermarket, we've got Compare the Market, we've got the Meerkat one, whatever. Yeah, they're all doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So why should I come to your website when you're doing other things? So that was one of the challenges, and one of the things we did as to answer that challenge was we elevated ourselves to become the industry authority. So it's easy on a very basic level. We listed every website. We became, in simple terms, we became the TripAdvisor of online bingo.
Right.
It's quite a simple concept. So any other website can do a list of every bingo site, do reviews, and boom, they're the same as us. So we ended up, we did an industry annual report. So it gave us authority. We ended up doing an industry awards ceremony, which again gave us that authority. We advertised on TV. We had a flashy TV ad, which again, it's easy to knock up a website, but you've got to be a big boy to get on the telly. Yeah. And all these things started answering that question: why should I go to your site rather than somebody else's? So that's probably one of the biggest challenges. I think one of the challenges as you're growing a business is the natural thing about letting go.
Yeah,
that's very, very difficult.
Yeah.
Towards the end of my time with the business, we got an external consultant in here who did a really fantastic exercise of doing a 360 on the whole team and me, and asked, what's good, what's bad, what do you like, what don't you like, and then sort of reported it back to me. And one of the key findings was for me to get out of the way. Really just get out of the way. Let us do our job.
Yeah.
If anything goes wrong, we'll tell you, but otherwise just keep your fingers out.
Yeah.
And one of the and there are inherently lots of things that you don't realize that founders and entrepreneurs have, and some of them are positive and some of them are negative. And some of the positives is we've always got loads of brilliant ideas. This shiny new object syndrome. So I'd come in on a Monday morning, I've read this article, or I've seen this thing on TV, or I've heard something on radio. We're going to do this. This is going to be brilliant.
Yeah.
And they go, do we have to? Yes, this is going to be it. This is going to be it. A week later, I'd go back in and say, why hasn't, on our existing site, why hasn't that been done? Oh, because we're doing your shiny new project. Oh, no, we're not doing that anymore. I'm bored with that. So it really was. And business owners do this, and I see it with clients as well.
Yeah.
Just get out. Sometimes it's get out of the way of the business. Leave us alone. Let us get on with it. And as a business owner, as the business grows, your role is to sort of set the target of where we're aiming. You point the compass, and then you get out of the way. Let them get on with it. And you've got to train them to do it, and recruit the right people, and put the right resources in place to do it, and all those sorts of things. But that is one of the challenges that you grow into as a business owner. You only learn it by doing it.
And how did you feel about being told that you needed to get out of the way when you read that report, or they talked you through the report? How did you feel when you were told that?
Well, my number two had been telling me this for a while, and I fortunately I'd bought a holiday home in Spain and was sort of going there a bit, and he kept saying to me, will you just go to Spain, leave me alone, if there's a problem I'll tell you. So actually hearing it from everybody else was like, right, okay, you're probably right. And it's I think it's part of the growing up as a business owner. When you start, and lots of businesses start with just a passion project, and it grows and grows and grows, and then it becomes a proper grown-up business, and then you've got to behave like a proper grown-up business person. And you learn to delegate, and you learn to set targets, and you learn to motivate people, which is, all of those things are not things you do when you start. You just start because it might be somebody, and there's been, I know 2 or 3 people who started businesses in lockdown, and then they're starting to grow into proper businesses, and they're taking on staff and all that sort of thing. Completely different skill set from just working from home and doing something you find exciting. Yeah. So you learn all these skills, and some of them you have to be told.
So speaking of which, what were the key lessons that you learned during your 18 years with the business?
Well, I did a presentation last week on my business journey, and I ended up with 10 key lessons learned at the end of it. I'm not going to do all 10 because we haven't got long enough. But I think a number of the key ones, one of them is set a BHAG, a big, hairy, audacious goal, a big target. So you've got a focus to go at. I think the other key ones, I think, are follow your gut, but do the research first. So if you've got an idea and you think, I really, really think this is going to work, I always say just go for it, because for a number of reasons. Number one, if you go for it and it doesn't work, then fine, you've scratched that itch, you learn the lesson, and you move on. If you don't do it, you'll spend all your time going, I wish I'd done that, I should do that, I should do it. And then somebody else will do it, then you get even more cheesed off. And it's very much a case of, jump off the cliff, the parachute will open. And the thing is, people won't remember the things you never did.
Right.
So I think that's another one to go with. But another one I learned in my sort of one of my previous jobs, and I passed on to my team, was a phrase that used to annoy me, and I annoyed my team by repeating it to them, was read the numbers. And I had this boss who said to me, read the numbers. What do you mean by read the numbers? And basically what he said, what he meant was, and we're all surrounded now by tons and tons and tons of data.
Yeah.
And what his point was, firstly, make sure you're collecting relevant data. The second thing is to actually read the data, and what's it telling you? What is that data saying? Sales are going up, sales are going down, we're selling more of this product stopped selling. And the third step is, okay, well, if the data is telling us that, what are we going to do? What's it telling us to do next? And that's really, really important. And sometimes, and I know our company did it, and it's hard not to do it. It's this sort of paralysis by analysis. You just got so much stuff.
Yeah.
But you don't go, right, okay, all right, collect this, and this. What's it telling us? What are the trends doing? And off the back of that, what should we do? Because the answer is usually in the data. Right. So I think those 3 things I would say is pretty key. I think as a business owner specifically, I would recommend anybody who's running their own business is to learn how to delegate properly.
And in terms of business, and I know now we haven't talked about this, but you've moved on to actually now consulting, to helping people that are in business. Do you find it's an issue where people get so engrossed in their business that they don't afford themselves the time to step out of the business and to really reflect on what's going on and then to strategize for the future?
Absolutely. And it's, particularly in the last 18 months, it's completely understandable. The last 18 months with the pandemic has been, what's the point of having a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year plan when actually it's what's going to happen this week, what's going to happen next week. If you've got a 3-month plan, particularly the last year, you would do, that's long term.
Yeah.
Think about, if you think, the day we're recording this, end of September. So if you got a 3-month plan, was what were you planning on doing mid-June? Now, mid-June to now, if you look backwards and then look forwards, actually quite a lot has changed in terms of lockdown and all those sorts of things. But generally, it's very easy for a business owner to get stuck in the weeds, and work on the minutiae without actually taking a step back and doing the big picture stuff. And that's one of the things I now try and do. I call myself a business sounding board, which is sort of halfway between a coach and a mentor. And it's that whole cliche of it's lonely at the top. When you're running your own business, you're supposed to have all the answers. And a lot of the stuff that happens in business, you can't discuss with your team. You can't call your sales manager in and go, look at this cash flow, we're knackered. It's not the sort of thing that's going to go down well.
No.
Or and loads of business owners are in this situation, and I was as well, is a lot of the time you're making it up as you go along. This sort of feels like a good idea. We'll go in this direction, or we'll do this, or we'll do that. So to actually have somebody like me to be able to just sit and listen and go, Phil, can I just talk you through this idea? Does this sound like stupid? Or I've got 3 great ideas. Which one should I do? Or I've got this one specific problem. And in my situation, and looking back on my career, I had 3 or 4 times when we had consultants come in and they really made a difference.
Yeah.
So I really would have liked somebody like me to just maybe once a week, once a month, sit down and go, can I just download on you? And sometimes it's not even an issue. It's just, can I just download on you?
Yeah.
And then the upside of it, and again, this comes down to business owners, and you start by doing everything, and then 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years later, you're still doing some of the stuff you shouldn't be doing. But then there's other stuff that you should be doing that you don't do because you don't want to do it. I compare it to pushing a cold piece of broccoli around your plate. You should eat it, but you really don't want to. So sometimes I'll just work as an accountability partner with somebody. Right. And I'll say, hey, Paul, last week we discussed A, B, and C. Did you do that? And the beauty of running your own business is you can do whatever you want. But actually, if you've got an accountability partner who says you should be doing that, that's really helpful. But if you've got somebody who can just talk to things, and again, when you step away from the day-to-day of the business, you see lots and lots of opportunities. You see lots and lots of maybe issues. And some of it can be big, scary, grown-up business stuff. Yeah. And your response might be, do you know what? I'll just go back to ringing clients and trying to sell stuff because all that big thinking stuff is too hard. So what I try and do, and I think what anybody out there should, if you're running your own business, is try and get a sounding board, an accountability partner, somebody you can just discuss things with. I don't give people answers. I just ask them questions.
Right. You just help them work through it.
Yeah. Why'd you do that? Have you thought about this? We had something similar. This is how it played out for us. Maybe consider that. And sometimes it's and again, a lot of these things happen to me. So I'm talking from experience. We had what was the phrase? So we had a guy who was very good at what he did, or was good at what he did, had been in the business a long time, but just was a real negative on the business. And a guy who I know who's a coach, he used the term brilliant jerk, right? And most companies have got a brilliant jerk. And he said to me, you've got to get rid of him. And he also uses the phrase, somebody's got to tell you your business is ugly. So, some of those hard truths have to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
and somebody looking from the outside in is able to do that.
Yeah,
and
I
that's
guess
where that's sorry, I was going to say that's the beauty of stepping back from the business.
You've got that clarity. Whereas if you're bogged in the day to day, things can often be quite muddied because of everything that's going on. Whereas someone from the outside looking in, they don't have that same issue. They can look at it with a lot more clarity, I guess, and hopefully translate that to the business owner.
Yeah, and what I'm doing is I'm not helping the business. I'm not saying, your supply chain's broken or your strategy's wrong. I'm helping the business owner to be a better business owner.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to be completely non-biased to be able to give the right advice. So you might say, do you know what? My wife or my partner or my husband or my brother is my sounding board.
Yeah.
Or my friend. I've got friends who run businesses and we swap ideas and all that sort of thing. But they've all got an inherent bias in them. The answer might be, do you know what, Paul? You're losing so much money, you need to close the business down, right?
Yeah.
Now, a business owner's wife or a business owner's husband isn't going to say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, your buddy, when you're playing golf or you're at the soccer or something, isn't going to say, do you know what, Paul? Your business is fucked. You need to close it down. Now, that's the ugly baby thing. You need somebody to be able to do that. And unless that person has got no bias, I mean, even, and I use this example quite a lot. A positive thing a business can do is to buy another business, a competitor. Yeah. It's a basic business strategy. Now, if you sit down with your sales manager and say, hey, Dave, me and you, I'm telling you, we're going to buy, the company down the road that we compete with, right? His first response inherently is always going to be, oh shit, he's going to keep their sales manager, not me. So he's got a bias, even if it's a good idea. You've actually got to evaluate who you're getting the advice from to see whether that's the right person to ask the advice of.
Yeah. And the flip side of that, of course, could be you could assure them that, look, you'll be the number one salesperson. Don't worry about it. And then they might be all boots and all, go for it. Whereas there might be something you've missed that they could have pointed out to you, which stopped you therefore from buying that business too. So it could work both ways.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. You flip it the other way. They go, fantastic. We've got the business is twice as big. I might get a salary increase.
Yeah.
But actually, strategically, somebody looking from the outside looks at it and goes, it's not a good fit.
No.
Or the business has a problem, or it's got a cash flow problem, or a bad debt problem. Whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So you've got to be really careful who you're getting your advice from.
Mm. And do you find that a lot of business owners are in the situation where they don't actually have a sounding board? They really don't have anyone to share it with, and they're having to deal with it all on their own. Is that pretty common?
I think it is. When you set up a business, people say, oh, you've got to get an accountant, and you've got to have a bank account, and maybe you need a solicitor. Nobody says, at the start, it's not on the tick list of starting a business, you need a coach or a mentor or a sounding board. So it's not a standard requirement that people sort of think they should have. But you've also got inherent in somebody who starts up a business, there's that bit of ego. You've got to have that to run your own business, and a bit of, I know best. I know better than what's out there. I've got the next, Netflix or something. So that type of person then holding their hand up and going, I haven't got the answers, I need some support.
Yeah.
Is counterintuitive to them. Because inherently, I'm a business leader, I think I know everything. Now, in the States, I think business culturally, they're very up on business coaches and mentors and things like that.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's like in New Zealand, but in the UK, it's still quite. It's not frowned upon. I wouldn't say that, but it's not de facto standard.
Can I just pick you up on that?
Yeah, sure.
Because I think it's interesting, to try and put this in context. I think it would be pretty reasonable to say that New Zealand follows, or was most influenced by the UK. Australia, more so than America. So we, in my opinion, have more commonality with the UK, and Australia have more commonality with America, and you see that in so many different ways. But yeah, to address that issue, we're very much like you. I think the thought of having a coach is not a big thing. Potentially, a lot of people would see it as a sign of weakness. Don't you know it all? You should. And I've touched on this on other podcasts. We have a perception here that if a business person fails, as in they go bankrupt, they're a failure. And whereas in America, conversely, they, take quite a different view that, if you've done a number of businesses and you've failed, they think, well, that's a great learning experience. Well done. You've learned a hell of a lot from that. You're very employable. Whereas in New Zealand, it's like, you're the Black Plague. Oh my God, this guy's been bankrupt. Don't go near him. He clearly doesn't know what he's doing. So, and I believe that actually hamstrings us as a country by that view. And I think I wouldn't suggest that we should take everything from America, but I think that's certainly something where I think they have a better position on it than what we do. So, and I'm guessing, and you can tell me, but I suspect that you're probably similar to us. In that regard, we're very conservative, worried about what people think in that. So, the thought of needing outside help, the thought of going bankrupt, are kind of not good topics.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. In the States, everybody has a coach. You don't have to be a CEO to have a coach. It's middle management have coaches. And you're right. In the UK, you launched a business and you failed. Ooh, that's not good. No. And you're right. The US look at it as like, great learning. Go again. Go again. Go again.
Yeah.
And we're very similar. Yeah, we're very similar to you in that respect.
Yeah, and look, from my personal experience, I know that when I've failed at something or not done so well at something, or fail at sport or whatever, that's when you learn the most. When you succeed, when you win the game or do well in business, you don't learn as much as when things go awry. That's when you're like, oh my God, and I've looked back and done some things and done really well at them, but it wasn't really that hard, and I just didn't really learn a lot and think, oh, everything's happy days. And then you suddenly do something that it all goes horribly wrong, and you're like, oh my God, I really wasn't that well equipped like I thought I was to deal with it, So we learn a lot more, in my opinion, at least from adversity than what we do from success.
Yeah, totally agree. Because you do that, because you when something doesn't succeed, you look at it and you go, okay, why didn't that work?
Yeah.
And you analyze it. When it succeeds, you go, okay, that was good.
Where's the next one?
We'll do it again, and then it fails, and you go, all right, okay, why didn't that work? So yeah, absolutely right.
And so, okay, from your point of view, for someone starting out, they want to be successful in business. What do you think are the keys? What are the main things? I mean, obviously, it's potentially a lot, but what would be just the fundamental keys for someone to put them on the right path to success?
Okay. One of the things I do now is I do some angel investment. So it's gone full circle from failing to get angel investment to actually being an angel investor. And that actually gives you a great view on objectively trying to judge a business on, quite early on. And there's 4 or 5 questions that I think you ask, the way you look at a potential investment, and it's great for startups, which is, number one, what is the pain point that you're trying to solve?
Yeah.
Okay. And sort of within that there's a sub question of, is that pain point big enough for anybody to really care? Yeah. The second thing is, why is your solution to that pain point better than anybody else's? Or to ask that question in a different way, why would they use your solution to pain point rather than somebody else's?
Yeah.
The third question is then, do you and your team have the ability to deliver what you say you're going to deliver as a pain point?
Yeah.
And then the final point is, is there profit in there? Can you make money and actually deliver that? So, and you see it. We talked about sort of Dragon's Den and Shark's Tank, and you do sometimes watch that program and you see things. You go, that's a solution to a problem that doesn't exist.
Right.
Somebody's almost found something and gone, oh, I could make this be a solution to that. And if it's not a big enough pain point, people won't pay for it. But if it is a big enough pain point and they're happy with their existing solution, they won't swap to yours. Yeah. So anybody who's starting out, you've got to really answer those sort of questions. And those pain points could be all sorts of things. It could be quicker, it could be slower, it could be better quality, it could be cheaper. It just could be a smarter solution to an existing problem. There's all sorts of different pain points that you can solve. Then it's why would they use you rather than somebody else? Yeah. And then have you got the skill set to do that? And then can you make money out of it?
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Well, that you brought on an interesting topic, which I wouldn't mind actually talking to you in a different podcast about, which is angel investing. So I think that in itself is an interesting topic to talk about. So if you're interested, I'd love to maybe reconvene this at another time and actually talk about that specific topic.
Yep, no problem at all. No problem at all. I'm part of a couple of angel investment groups. So something I've only been doing for probably about 18 months, 2 years, but it's fascinating stuff.
Yeah, no, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much, Phil. Really enjoyed learning from you today, and certainly keen to talk to you further about that. I think in a moment you've agreed to stay on. We're going to do Read to Succeed, but in terms of insights into success, thank you so much for your time. Your time's valuable, and really interesting to hear from someone that's been there, done that, and now looking to help other people with their business and their success. Now, I guess just to finalise this, if people wanted to get a hold of you, how would they do that if they're wanting a sounding board?
Okay, so if you go to my website, which is www.philfraser.co.uk, don't go to philfraser.com because that's a medieval reenactment costume company. So if there's lots of bow and arrows and Robin Hood type people, you're on the wrong site. So it's .co.uk.
Right.
Or find me on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn most days, and quite happy to talk to anybody about any issue they've got within running their own business. And my email, my phone number, everything's on the website. And I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter. I'm now on Instagram, because somebody wanted to do an Instagram live with me and I didn't have an Instagram account. So now I've even got an Instagram account, YouTube channel, everything.
All right. Well, thank you for that. We'll put it in the notes and that anyway, so people will be able to get a hold of you. But thank you so much. Appreciate your time, and looking forward to our next chat. So thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Really enjoyed it.